what's up, guys? We're here with Captain Chip Bragg, myself, Chris Blanchett, Coast to Cove Charters, Largemouth Bass Guide, Sea and Stripes, Striped Bass, Multispecies, 72-pound catfish guide, perch guide, just does it all, right? So we're gonna do a fishing report again. It's been about a month break, right? November was super hectic and busy for both of us. I had a bunch of travel for tournament stuff. We ended up the Bassmaster EQs, had a great tournament down there in Okeechobee, finishing 23rd, wrapping up the year, and then a bunch of guide trips in between for both of us, and we've been on the water a good bit. So let's talk about fishing. Chip, if you want to start us off, tell us a little bit about the water conditions that you've seen. I know you've been really focusing, I believe, towards the upper end of the lake, mid and upper end of the lake. But
Right.
kind of tell me a little bit about what you've been seeing, water temp, color, kind of all the stuff.
So we've actually, we've had a fairly dry fall, winter so far. Typically, sometimes in December, we start seeing a lot of dirty water. Last month we had a lot of leaves and pine straw. I know a lot of my striper guys were complaining about it. I mean, it was. I'm sure y'all were probably having them all over your lines and stuff like that. It was tough.
Yeah.
But water clarity right now is actually it's not clear, but it's extremely clean for this time of year, especially on the upper end. I've been fishing up there in the Little River, fishing in the Big River, fishing at the Forks, fishing at the Elbow. They have water is exceptionally clean. And again, the water's down a little bit, but we haven't had the rain to hit those exposed clay banks to muddy up the water. Water temp has really just plummeted in the last week. So we're sitting here on this is a Monday. We're doing this on cold Monday. It's like 17 degrees outside. So last Monday I was seeing 55, 54, 56, seeing a lot of 55 stuff, but we'll call it 55. So the last 3 days, I've seen as low as 49 and I've seen as high as like 50 and a half. So we're at that 49, 50 degree mark where I'm fishing up lake. Of course, you'll see some 52, 53, maybe some 54 stuff down mid lake, Drew Island, Bear Creek. It stays a little bit warmer down there, a little deeper water. But I'm up there at cold water. So, but there hasn't, again, give back just water quality. Water quality's been good. It's clean, no more trash, but it's cold water up the lake. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, same thing from what I've been seeing too. Up there a lot. I haven't been seeing like straight mud like what you're saying. Maybe in the very backs of a creek after a rain, right, which makes total sense. But like for the most part, it's that like clean stain color, which is good.
That's right. It's a good stain.
Yeah, it's a really good stain, and that's all the way up, to the double bridges, right? So, that's kind of what I've been seeing too. But yeah, I'd imagine these 2 nights kind of in the upper teens, low 20s, it'll drop it even more. But the good news is like for Lake Murray, it likes that to an extent, right? So like, I think it'll be good.
It really groups everything up.
Yeah, it'll be good. So it's good for the fishing. It's good for the lake. So, the low 50s, upper 40s is actually some of the best fishing on Lake Murray, especially if you're going after bigger fish. So with that, Chip, tell me a little bit about the stripers. I know you've done catfish as well. Just kind of throw at me whatever you've seen as far as your species, and then I'll do bass.
So, the stripers are going to get pretty in depth with. This is that time of year where we really start really honing in on that. But I'm going to jump through a couple little species real quick. The crappie's been loaded up on the brush, guys. That's 20 to 25 foot brush has really been good. You get up there in some shallow water, you get some 15 to 18 foot brush, but just go pile to pile until you find a pile that's loaded up on the side skins. Hey, you can live scope them or just sit on top of them. If they won't bite, give them 15, 20 minutes. If they won't bite, don't sit there and waste 2 or 3 hours on them. Go to the next pile. That's the way Murray crappie are. You go pile to pile to pile so you find that active school. Seen a couple open water schools, but not a whole lot yet. Perch are in the ditches, guys. You fall off, not necessarily like a deep ditch, but you just got 2 points, and that ditch right in the middle of those 2 points, they're in the back of it. So you're looking for a perch, that 30, 40 foot back of a ditch is where I'd be. The cats, you mentioned I had a new personal best. I had a 72 pounder this last week, man. It was just a toad. Thing had I swear it was like a 36, 38 inch girth. It was just a massive fat fish.
Gosh.
But I actually caught that fish in about 50 foot of water on the edge of a channel. Fish ate a gizzard shad. But they've been eating gizzards and they've been eating perch. Really anywhere, if you're up in the upper end of the lake, that 20, 25 foot of water. As you come down below the forks, you can get in that 25 to 35 foot. And I like to stay on the edge of the channel. That way I can kind of zigzag back and forth when I'm dragging. I can drop into the channel and pull some baits in the channel, or I can get up on the flat. So just kind of concentrate on the edge of that channel. That's what I'd recommend. Again, gizzard shad and perch. Typically, as the water falls off in the 40s, I do better on shad than I do perch. But I always have a couple out there. Now the striper, it's time. I mean, unfortunately, everybody's out there chasing them right now.
A lot.
I'm not exaggerating. I counted 40 boats chasing birds last Friday.
Yeah.
I had to leave. I was trying my best to kind of fish around them, and I had to leave. I left and went down lake about 3 miles just to get away from them. Yesterday, Sunday, man, it was everybody was gone, and I got to have my way with what it was, and we kept 20. It was a big, disgusting box. They were 6 to 10 pounds. Had like 3 cats in there, had some perch. I mean, it was just everything was eaten. I'm catching my fish in the backs of creeks, from midway to the back. I don't know what happened, but this last cold front, typically for most of the end of October through November, it's just a big smorgasbord of boats from the river forks down to the elbow. I mean, there's just tons and tons of boat traffic through there. Guys pulling boars, guys trolling, some guys chasing birds. Man, for the last week I went through there, and it is a ghost town. The bait, I just can't find any bait in the channels. I mean, there's some here and there, but not like it was. Usually when that bait and the fish start disappearing out of that main channel, they're getting into the creeks. Check out Buffalo Creek, Rocky Creek. You can always go down into Bear Creek, Hollow Creek, Hall Leak, Spring. Get up on the banks, get up on the flats. If you're not marking stuff in the channels, the fish are up shallow or shallower. You can go up the big river. You can go up the little river. Pay attention to sunlight sometimes. So you get this really cold water. This water's going to be in the 40s probably by the end of this week. You got 2 types of bait that kind of, I guess they react to that coldness. Some of them go sit in the bottom of the channel. It's just they want that deep water that stays more consistent. Our surface temps this time of year, they might fluctuate 4 or 5 degrees. Well, that deeper water doesn't fluctuate like that. So that bait will go down and sit in that consistent water temperature. Then you got the other bait that's kind of more free swimming bait. Well, that sunlight's going to go hit them banks. It's going to be, a couple foot of water. That sunlight, the water temperature's in the 40s. That sunlight's beaming on that shallow water. It's going to warm it up. So that bait's going to go to those banks for that warmer water, and the fish are going to follow them. So you pay attention to that, whether you're going to be fishing banks or you want to be fishing deep. It's really a personal preference. I prefer to fish shallower water. Yesterday, I told you we had a nice box. I fished really the deepest water I actually caught a fish in was about 15 foot of water. Shallowest was probably less than 5 foot. You got to pay attention when you're fishing that shallow water. You're going to drag the bottom a lot if you're running weights. I don't like running weights this time of year if I can help it. And also bait size. Bait size is really, really key right now, guys. I love fishing big baits. I'll fish big baits with anybody. And I'm still pulling some big baits this time of year, but don't shy away from small thread fins, shiners. I cleaned a fish on Friday. It was a Friday, no, Saturday. Had 17 2-inch thread fins in its belly. I mean, I counted them. I cut them in half, and they poured out. And I started counting them just for the heck of it. They're coughing up thread fins, and they're coughing up actual shiners in my fish box. So they're eating like 1 inch to 2 inch baits. If you can find, use shiners, you can use small. I love tiny gizzards this time of year. 3-inch gizzards, 4-inch gizzards. That's the way to go. Or shiners. If you're throwing artificials, ice flies. Ice flies look just like a small thread fin. You can throw some type of combo bucktail ice fly. You can throw a fluke ice fly. Guys, I even run an ice fly on some of my live bait lines. I run a 3-way swivel, put a live bait behind an ice fly. That's usually so my clients get to see that. I usually don't drop stuff like that, but
yeah, it's sneaky.
It's a real, you want to see something, try to run that rig, come out and see me. I catch a lot of doubles on that rig. Put a live bait behind an ice fly, man. That's some good stuff right there. But overall, I think I don't want to take up too much of our time. I can talk about this time of year all day long, but
a lot of stuff happens.
That should give you a bunch of info right there.
Yeah.
Throw a lot of it at you at one time.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. I mean, and that's a lot of, that makes me talking about bass a little bit easier too, because for us, it's so bait driven right now. I mean, we obviously have two main forages right now this time of the year, and that's, the shad and the crayfish, right? Crawfish. And, so there's kind of a 1-2 punch. I'll kind of back up and then go back forward to where we are and then kind of project a little bit on what I think it's going to be. End of October, we had some awesome schooling days. We actually had an awesome day on Murray where we caught 58 in a guide trip day, which I hate to even say because then that becomes like a preconceived notion or an expectation, and that is absolutely not. That's an anomaly, but it was just a fantastic day of fishing. We caught them on topwater too, so that's super cool. It's started to slow down, right? So like it went from really high numbers, and you had to weed through numbers of fish to get a little bit of that better size fish, to now, you're starting to get less bites, but it seems like the quality is way better. And those fish are really, really fat and healthy. And, they've been gorging on the shad for about a month and a half now. Some of the things that we're using to target our fish on the guide trips we've had recently are crankbait, something like this guy right here, Strike King Hardliner. I like this one. I like, kind of those flat-sided crankbaits as well, kind of like a crayfish pattern, crawfish pattern. Red, that's starting to become that time of the year. That bite's going to start picking up. It's already starting a little bit, but it's going to start getting really good here soon. We've been catching some on a jerkbait as well. Some of those fish that want something with a little bit more of like a pause to it instead of just a straight retrieve. We've been catching fish. I've been throwing a jig a good bit too. Something like this one right here. I'm just kind of throwing that around, dragging it real slow, looking for, brush, piles, rocks, just kind of all of the different stuff. I love, a jig because you can just kind of throw it and go, whether that be a dock or a rock pile or brush or, just like a lay down, whatever that is in front of you. It covers some good water, put it exactly where you want it. The Alabama rig bite's starting to turn on too. If you get a little bit of, surface disturbance or, watercolor, whatever, you can pick up that Alabama rig and get right in a hurry, especially low light conditions. What else? The worm bite's always good. It's steady. We've been catching fish out deep. We've also been catching fish up shallow. Literally, this time of the year is a pick'em almost for Lake Murray. We've been catching fish on docks. We've been catching fish even shallower than docks with a crankbait. Catching them on the jerkbait in between, and then you can catch them all the way out there in like 40 feet of water. So, it's like it's kind of pick them, whatever your style of fishing is. Go kind of get after it. Cover a lot of water. Big thing right now, make sure that you're around bait. I'll say it again, super important. Make sure you're around bait. If there's no bait in the area, your chances of catching a lot of fish are going to go drastically down. And I feel like that's something that everybody knows, but not a lot of people do, especially when I talk to people that I take on guide trips. It's like, we all know that you want to be around bait fish when you're fishing, but sometimes it's like, oh, well, that lay down looks super good or this or that, but it's like if there's no bait around it, like, you're fishing a low probability area that potentially could hold a fish, but probably is not going to hold a concentration of fish, which is what you want to do, is put yourself around as many concentrations of fish as possible to catch the most amount of fish during your trip. I will say that the bite windows have been all over the place. I think that's a pretty fair statement. It has been pretty consolidated to about a 1.5 to 2 hour range. It had been kind of the middle of the day. there's a little bite window first thing, then the middle part of the day, and then there'd been a bite window between like 3:30 and 5, maybe 4:45 to 5. Right before dark, that like 15 to 20, 30-minute stretch, we really hadn't been catching too many. It had been like up until about 4:45, and then its bite just kind of shuts off for us. That being said, that's kind of a high-level view, exactly what we've seen. What I project coming up is it's going to be a lot of more of the same. A-rig, crankbait, jig, worm, just kind of all the stuff that you want to throw this time of the year, traditional Lake Murray stuff. As it gets colder, start going for, like, if you're throwing a crankbait, go for more of like a flat side, right? Like that hard liner, something that has a really tight wiggle to it, really emulates like a shad that's kind of dying, and, those colder water temperatures. We also need to watch out for a bait kill too if we do get down, but it is supposed to get hot next week. So just something to keep our eyes on. But yeah, I think that's a great place to start. I've literally fished all the way up there towards the forks of the river and back down. Watercolor's been awesome up there. And then obviously down there towards the main lake too, we've obviously got the grass that's in play. There's certain types of grass. There's eelgrass, there's milfoil, and pondweed, or southern naiad is what it's called too. Southern naiad will go ahead and start dying off, as well as that like stringweed as well. The milfoil will stay good down to probably like the mid 40s, I'd say. So like you'll still see that stuff for a while. But yeah, it's just kind of a pick 'em. Whatever your preference is, you can go do. Docks are solid right now. You can catch some good weight off of docks. So just whatever is your preference, go do it. It's going to be great weather over the next couple weeks. It's supposed to be back up in the 60s. I will say two things though. The fish for sure have, and I'll get your input on this too, Chip, is like, it's not that they want a hotter day or a colder day per se. It's more of they want consistency right now. Same with the water level as well. So like it's not as it rising or it's falling. It's like we've had good consistent water level, and I feel like we're starting to see that in some of the tournament results lately too. It's been around that 355, 356 range for about a month and a half now, and I think that's great. That's something that we need. And then the weather's kind of been all over the place. But, when we did have a good, consistent little cold spell, all of a sudden the weight started jumping up to where it was like 17, 18 pounds to win, to where now, man, like just mega weights are starting to win tournaments, which is great. And they're healthy fish too, and they're starting to fatten up early. So I really predict like that pre-spawn bite is going to be insane. I think it's going to take really big weight, because if they're catching that type of weight now, those fish are only going to get bigger over the wintertime. So definitely watch out for that. I think it's going to be a great year of fishing next year. So with that, Chip, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, and I basically, it's that time of year, guys. I always tell people we need to also just pay attention out there. I had a guy run the other day. I actually talked to him at the ramp. I never said a word to him, and he honestly didn't know he did. I was not spread out wide. And I never called him out on it. Even when I talked to him at the dock, he was just an older guy. I just didn't know. But y'all pay attention to people. I mean, not necessarily just the striper guys, but if the guys are out there chasing birds, don't run through the birds. Don't wake them. Don't wake the guys pulling planer boards just because you just don't want to weave through stuff, man. Take your time. Be considerate to people. Especially up there in the upper part of the lake. Like I said, there was 45 boats chasing birds on Friday. Y'all be considerate to each other. Try, and yeah, I'm a live bait fisherman, but and I don't own the lake, and neither does anybody else. But don't jump in front of these guys that are pulling planer boards and stuff, and just sit there. Give them a little bit of room. We're staying out of y'all's way. Just try to stay out of ours. Just work together. That being said, though, also remember, guys, water temperature in the 50s, maybe see some 40s. You fall in. You got about 5 minutes, guys, to get up out before you start losing dexterity and stuff like that. Little keys to remember: you can use your motor to get back in the boat. Stand on the down on the lower unit. Hit the button on the side of the motor. It can raise you up if you can't pull yourself back into that boat. Wear your life vest out there in this cold water. It could literally, man, I'm telling you, 5 minutes in that 50-degree water, and you may be getting that bad phone call. So pay attention out there. Be careful, guys. Be aware of water temperature and how it affects your body and so forth.
Yeah. All great points. And, especially like you said, above Rocky Creek, Like if you're going up towards the river, I mean, exercise extreme caution. Ton of boats up there, a lot of planer boards out. Try and be respectful of all that if you're a bass fisherman as well, and you're kind of buzzing around. A couple things too we want to talk about. Chip and I have been talking about this for a while now. We've been working on it. We're going to start doing the kind of angler vault, elite angler deal that we were talking about, which is going to be like on the water fishing reports and more in-depth detail to these. So if you like these, you're going to love what we're going to be coming out with as well. Kind of like a membership type deal, and it's going to be like live reports. So let's say I get off the water and I caught them on a jerkbait. Instead of just saying, hey, I caught them on a jerkbait, which is great, that's great information to have, especially if you have limited time on the water. It's going to be like, hey, I caught them off of jerkbaits on 45-degree banks in the midsection of the lake. The cadence to get these fish to commit was, a jerk, 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 pause, so that you get them to kind of pull and draw out of the cover or whatever you're fishing around, and then give them a chance to be able to get it. I would throw this color because they were starting to swipe at it a little bit instead of actually like get the jerk bait. So like that type of detail, if that's what you're looking for, and that would be a great benefit to you. It would save you time on the water. That's something that we're going to be offering as well. Just kind of something that we're thinking about. I don't know 100% on time frame of it, but man, we'd like to get it out and kind of start rolling within the next month or two. So kind of stay tuned with that. We'll definitely keep you in the loop. Super grateful just for the opportunity to be able to get on here and talk and, kind of tell everybody about what we're seeing. I mean, I'd say between the two of us, we spend probably as much time on Lake Murray as anybody. And, it's great to be able to talk to the community that doesn't get to spend that much time out there and kind of help get them to be able to be more successful when they're out on the water. As always, we're going to end with Bible verse. I'd encourage you to open the Bible, check it out, see exactly what it says, and maybe read a couple lines after it as well. But I said it on my Instagram story earlier this week is Jeremiah 17:10. Great Bible verse. It kind of highlights exactly the way I feel like you should live your life. And if you kind of prioritize and focus that way, it seems like you'll always be successful and things will always happen well to you. Great mentality to have as well. So check that out. Until next month, I'm Captain Chris. That's Captain Chip. We will see you then.